In President Trump's first year back in office, we've delivered the most secure border in American history. And we did it with the immediate aftermath we were facing from that humanitarian crisis that was created from Joe Biden's open border policies. It is so quiet here now today that sometimes we even forget how bad it was just a little over a year ago. And the importance of the accomplishment that has happened over this last year cannot be forgotten. Hardworking Americans all along this southern border were devastated. They were trying to do their jobs, educate their kids, and protect the future when they were handed this humanitarian crisis and saw the horrors of what was happening.
On January 24, 2026, federal agents in Minneapolis shot and killed Alex Pretti, a VA nurse who was attempting to help a woman that agents had pushed to the ground. This killing followed the January 7 shooting of Renee, another United States citizen killed by federal agents during an operation in the same city. These are not isolated incidents of collateral damage in a war against violent crime. They are the direct results of a policy that prioritizes looking tough over the rule of law. The Trump administration claims it is only removing the worst of the worst. The record proves otherwise. Here, play this clip.
It is so wonderful and such an honor for me to get to come here and spend some time with all of you. And we're here to talk about how secure this border is and to celebrate that we have 1 year of a secure border and a secure United States of America. I want to say thank you to the gentlemen who all spoke before me and thank them for their leadership. To Paul and Rodney and Todd and Chief, just thank them for all that they've done to lead the men and women of the Department of Homeland Security in carrying out the mission that President Trump committed to fulfill for the people that live in our great country. I also want to thank Tom Homan for being the border czar. He was busy up in Minneapolis today and wasn't able to be here, but we thank him for his leadership as well.
Donald Trump says his administration is focused on the detention and removal of violent criminals and gang members to make America safe. That is a lie. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says the border is the most secure in the history of the United States because of these policies. That is a lie. The administration claims that the people being detained and deported are a major threat to the safety of the nation. That is a lie. They claim that they are delivering unmatched enforcement success while following the law. That is a lie. Here, play this clip.
That we had ever seen in our history, and that it needed to be fixed. And the way that you fix it is you just enforce the law. That you go out there and say the laws need to be enforced and they need to be applied equally to every single person. And that Americans come first because they're the people who have built this country, and that they're the ones who are here working jobs and putting their kids through school and doing the right thing to make sure that our freedom and our liberties are secured. So I want to thank him for his leadership, for the fact that he told the American people what we needed. He said we needed a wall, and we have a wall, a big, beautiful wall that President Trump also wanted painted black so that it would endure for a long period of time, that it would look like the strength and stamina that the American people have, and that it would be something that would continue to protect us for generations to come.
We must define the specific lie being told to the American people by those in the highest levels of authority. On December 11, 2025, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem testified before the House Committee on Homeland Security. She claimed the administration is ending illegal immigration and returning sanity to the system by focusing on threats to the homeland. Donald Trump posted on social media that Secretary Noem is doing a great job and that the border is totally secure. He further claimed that his border czar, Tom Homan, is doing a fantastic job in carrying out these operations. Noem declared on January 16, 2026, that America's borders are safer than at any time in history. She pointed to newly released customs and border protection numbers as proof of historic results. These authorities are telling you that their mass deportation agenda is a precise surgical strike against violent offenders. Here, play this clip.
When they were trespassing onto private property, we had crimes being committed. We saw women and children being trafficked, people dying, and crimes continue to be perpetuated as people were allowed to come into the country unvetted and unstopped. You know, yesterday I was in Eagle Pass, Texas, and I had the chance to tour the border, not just with our Border Patrol agents, but also with the Texas National Guard and the Texas Department of Public Safety. And we looked at some of the areas that were the hardest hit during the Biden border policies.
They are telling you that the violence is necessary to protect your freedom. The forensic evidence from the administration's own records proves that these claims are false. Internal data from Immigration and Customs Enforcement shows that less than 10% of immigrants taken into custody since October 2024 had serious criminal convictions. Internal documents suggest that federal officials are not focused on violent criminals. As of November 30th, 2025, 73.6% of all detainees held by ICE had no criminal conviction at all. The Cato Institute analyzed non-public data and found that 65% of people taken by ICE had no convictions. Of those who did have a record, 93% had no violent convictions. The proportion of immigrants convicted of violent crimes in detention has actually dropped from 10% under the previous administration to 7% under Trump. The evidence proves that the administration is primarily detaining individuals with no criminal history or individuals who have committed only minor offenses like traffic violations. The evidence also proves that the administration is failing to meet its own arrest targets. Trump set a goal of 1,200 to 1,500 arrests per day, but the rate declined to fewer than 600 per day by February. ICE then stopped publishing daily statistics to hide this failure. The evidence shows that the administration is using a media campaign to create a mirage of mass deportations. They post images of shackled deportees and manipulate search engine results to make their enforcement look more effective than it is. They even posted a video of handcuffed immigrants with the caption, ASMR, illegal alien deportation flight. This evidence proves the administration is more concerned with the spectacle of deportation than the reality of public safety. Here, play this clip.
Those ranchers were talking about how different it was for them now. The fact that their ranches are safe again, that they don't have drug cartels running drugs across their property and down their roads and endangering their children and their schools. Many of the schools in many of these communities had to put up barriers and protections and boulders and rocks just between the roads and their schools to keep their children safe so they could go in and out and get their education in a way that would protect their lives.
This is a story about the exercise of raw power and the total lack of control. The administration has undertaken a massive expansion of presidential power under the unitary executive theory. This theory holds that the president must have complete control over the executive branch and that independent agencies are illegitimate. To exercise this control, the administration launched the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. They use DOGE to dismantle government agencies and oversee mass layoffs of civil servants who were seen as obstacles to the president's agenda. Trump fired 17 independent inspectors general at federal agencies in a single day, which appears to violate federal law. He also fired members of the National Security Council and the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency for providing assessments that disagreed with his public statements. This is an administration that demands absolute loyalty over expertise. They have cross-deputized officers from the Drug Enforcement Administration and the U.S. Marshals Service to perform the functions of immigration officers. They have reassigned nearly 1/4 of all FBI agents to support immigration enforcement. This diversion of resources has caused the number of fraud and drug cases in U.S. courts to fall, while immigration cases have tripled. The administration is using its power to punish states and cities that do not cooperate with its policies. They reduced more than $233 million in funding from states like Connecticut, New York, and Washington. This is not the behavior of a controlled government following a mandate. This is the behavior of an administration using the machinery of the state to settle personal scores and intimidate anyone who might cross the president. The strongest defense argument offered by the administration is that they are simply enforcing the law and responding to information they receive from the ground. Secretary Noem defended the killing of Alex Pretti by claiming the agents fired defensive shots and that Pretti intended to kill law enforcement. She claimed her department was acting on what they knew to be true at the time. This defense is dismantled by the physical evidence and the law. Multiple civilian videos of the incident show that Pretti did not have a firearm in his hands. The videos show that Pretti was actually disarmed by an officer just before the first shot was fired. He was holding a cell phone, not a weapon. The defense that the administration is following the law is also dismantled by the numerous court rulings against them. Federal judges have found that the administration's actions are illegal and unconstitutional in roughly 1/3 of all cases analyzed. The administration has been ordered by the Supreme Court to return individuals who were wrongfully deported, such as Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Garcia was a Salvadoran with legal status who was mistakenly sent to a notorious prison in El Salvador despite a court order barring his removal. The administration admitted this was an administrative error, but then baselessly accused him of being a gang leader to justify their actions. The record proves that the administration willfully violates injunctions and misleads the courts to carry out its agenda. A whistleblower from the Justice Department alleged that senior officials instructed him to make arguments they knew to be false and to withhold information from judges. The defense of legal enforcement is a sham used to cover up a pattern of lawless conduct. The legal education we must all understand is that the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution protects everyone in the United States from unreasonable searches and seizures. This protection extends to the enforcement of civil immigration law. Most immigration arrests are carried out under administrative warrants. An administrative warrant is not the same as a judicial warrant. A judicial warrant is signed by a judge and provides the authority to enter a private home. An administrative warrant does not authorize the use of force for non-consensual entry into a private residence. However, an internal ICE memorandum authorized agents to use administrative warrants to forcibly enter homes. This policy is a direct violation of the Fourth Amendment. The Supreme Court has also established that brief detentions and traffic stops require at least reasonable suspicion. Federal courts have ruled that suspected alienage is not enough to meet the reasonable suspicion standard. You cannot be detained just because of how you look or what language you speak. Furthermore, the 10th Amendment prohibits the federal government from commandeering state resources to enforce federal law. This is why sanctuary cities have the legal right to limit their cooperation with ICE. The administration's attempts to bypass the courts and erode due process are a threat to the foundational principles of the American legal system. My professional judgment is that Secretary Kristi Noem and Border Czar Tom Homan are unfit for the responsibilities of their offices. Secretary Noem has diverted vast taxpayer resources to an extreme agenda while failing to provide basic information to the Congress that conducts oversight. She has presided over a department that kills American citizens and deports toddlers without a meaningful process. Her testimony before Congress was characterized by a refusal to address specific orders from federal judges. Senator Jackie Rosen has called Noem an abject failure who either cannot rein in her agency or endorses its constitutional violations. Tom Homan has admitted that his agents make collateral arrests of U.S. citizens in many instances. He has been linked to private prison companies that benefit financially from increased detentions. The administration's reliance on these individuals shows a preference for ideological safeguards over competent governance. They have created a climate where any criticism is sanctioned and loyalty is the only metric of success. This is an administration that is actively working to dismantle the checks and balances that prevent the abuse of power. They are using the government to target political opponents and civil society in a way that contributes to democratic backsliding. Their actions are not just a failure of policy. They are a failure of character and a betrayal of the oath of office. We must look at the expert authority stack to understand the scale of this crisis. Numerous experts on fascism, including Jason Stanley, Timothy Snyder, and Johann Chapoutot, have denounced the authoritarianism of this presidency. Over 800 political scientists signed a letter warning that the administration is undermining the rule of law. Legal experts and human rights observers have noted that the administration's deportation flights may violate the United Nations Convention Against Torture. This convention prohibits sending any person to a country where they would be in danger of being subjected to torture. The administration has attempted to deport individuals to dangerous countries like Libya and South Sudan, which legal experts describe as a violation of federal law. Economic experts from the Brookings Institution and the Peterson Institute have found that the administration's plans would result in no economic growth and a decrease in employment for American-born workers. The American Immigration Council estimates the cost of this mass deportation plan at nearly $1 trillion over a decade. These are not partisan opinions. They are the consensus of scholars, economists, and legal authorities who have studied the evidence. Even judges appointed by Donald Trump himself have issued orders to block his policies, citing a lack of evidence and a disregard for the rule of law. Institutional accountability is the only way to stop this lawless conduct. A majority of the House Democratic caucus has signed on to articles of impeachment against Secretary Kristi Noem. These articles were introduced in response to the shooting deaths of Renee Good and Alex Pretti. Republican Senators Tom Tillis and Lisa Murkowski have also called for Noem's resignation, stating that her conduct should be disqualifying. The Senate is currently blocking a measure to fund the Department of Homeland Security because it includes money for these aggressive operations. This has raised the possibility of a partial government shutdown. Federal courts across the country are issuing injunctions to stop the administration's most extreme actions. A judge in California ordered an end to ICE raids that were stopping people without warrants or reasonable suspicion. A judge in Minnesota ordered the release of a 5-year-old child and his father, denouncing the administration's policies as illegal. The Department of Justice's Civil Division is under scrutiny for its plan to strip naturalized citizens of their citizenship. This plan is seen as a way to target political opponents for deportation. Whistleblowers within the government are coming forward to disclose internal memos that violate the Constitution. These institutions are the last line of defense against an executive branch that claims its only limit is the president's own morality. The procedural consequences of these actions are now unfolding in our legal and political systems. As of June 2025, there were 4 specific deportees that U.S. courts have ordered the government to return to the United States. These include Daniel Lozano Camargo and Jordan Alexander Melgar Samaron, both of whom were sent to El Salvador in violation of court orders. The government is also facing a massive class action suit in the District of Columbia to block the removal of unaccompanied minors. The Supreme Court is scheduled to hear a case in February 2026 regarding the legality of the administration's universal import duties. The Court of Appeals has already ruled that these tariffs are invalid under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. In Minnesota, a federal judge has granted a restraining order against the Department of Homeland Security following the killing of Alex Pretti. All immigration officers in Minneapolis are now required to wear body cameras. This is a procedural requirement to ensure that agents cannot lie about their actions on the ground. There is a February 3rd, 2026 deadline for the release of several detained families. The Congressional Research Service has clarified that state and local governments cannot be forced to use their resources to enforce federal immigration law. These are the cold, hard facts of the legal process. They are the only things that matter in a courtroom. The record is clear. The administration claims to be protecting you from criminals, but they are detaining people with no convictions. They claim to be following the law, but they are violating the Fourth Amendment in your homes. They claim to be making the country safe, but they are killing VA nurses and grandmothers. They claim to be saving money, but they are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on troop deployments to cities that do not want them. They claim to have a mandate, but they are acting as if they are above the law. Donald Trump has stated that the only thing that can stop him is his own mind. He says he does not need international law. He says national strength should be the only factor in how power is used. This is a rejection of the American system of government. This is the evidence of an administration that has abandoned the rule of law in favor of the rule of one man. The accountability for these lies must happen now. It must happen in the courts. It must happen in the Congress. And it must happen through the truth. The records prove the lies. The law defines the crimes. The consequences are inevitable. The evidence proves that the Trump administration's mass deportation policy is not a tool of justice, but a weapon of political retribution. By diverting thousands of law enforcement officers away from their primary duties to chase nonviolent individuals and U.S. citizens, the administration has compromised national security. They have tripled the workload of our courts with civil matters, while criminal prosecutions for fraud and drugs have plummeted. They have turned our airports and streets into stages for a cruel media campaign designed to dehumanize those in their custody. They have ignored the specific orders of federal judges and misled the Supreme Court. They have created a system of secret memos and warrantless entries that treat every home as a potential battleground. This is the forensic reality of the second Trump presidency. It is a reality built on a foundation of lies that Secretary Noem and Donald Trump repeat every day. They tell you the border is secure to hide the fact that their arrest numbers are failing. They tell you they are removing terrorists to hide the fact that they are arresting farm workers and nurses. They tell you they are following the Constitution while they are actively trying to suspend the writ of habeas corpus. These are not matters of opinion. These are the documented facts from the administration's own records, from the halls of Congress, and from the benches of our federal courts. The law is clear, the evidence is overwhelming, and the accountability is coming. We are seeing a coordinated assault on the civil liberties of everyone in this country, citizen and non-citizen alike. When ICE agents rappel from Black Hawk helicopters at 1 a.m. to toss flashbangs at families in a Chicago apartment complex, they are not just targeting immigrants. They are zip-tying U.S. citizens and children in a military-style operation that violates the core principles of our democracy. When the Justice Department issues memos targeting naturalized citizens to strip them of their status, they are creating a two-tiered system of citizenship that can be used to silence any voice of dissent. When the administration freezes funding for universities like Harvard under the smokescreen of combating anti-Semitism, they are using the power of the purse to conduct an ideologically motivated assault on higher education. This is the flood the zone strategy in action. It is designed to overwhelm the institutions of our government so that they cannot react to each new violation of the law. But the institutions are reacting. The lawsuits are being filed. The whistleblowers are speaking out. And the truth is being documented in the public record. The administration's claim that they are acting in the interest of the American people is the ultimate lie. They are acting in the interest of absolute power, unrestrained by the law or the Constitution. The forensic evidence has been presented. The legal standard has been established. The judgment is now in your hands.